This is the OFN Today for Week 11 in the NFL. Usually we come on earlier in the week and we wrap up the week in the NFL, talk a little Monday Night Football. But since we are on a Friday, we'll get an opportunity to talk a little bit about last week. That's Week 10, a little bit about this week upcoming on Sunday. That's Week 11. And also what happened last night to kick off Week 11 in Seattle. Huge win for the Seahawks over Arizona. How's everything going, Ryan?
Good. Thanks for adjusting the schedule this week to accommodate my move. I hope you like the
yes.
Freshly painted wall.
Yeah.
Yep.
Looks nice.
Templeton gray.
Yeah, you had a very busy week, not only moving, but the New York Giants were in the news with firing their offensive line coach.
Not much of a bye week. They had six players go on the COVID-19 list and fire their offensive line coach for a heated discussion with the head coach. Not much of a bye week.
So so that must have been some heated discussion to get fired. I mean, these guys, don't they have heated discussions all the time?
No, I think it was much more than that.
Yeah.
My reporting, to get into it, so Mark Colombo, the Giants offensive line coach, came over with Jason Garrett from the Cowboys. And obviously the Giants offensive line hasn't performed well this whole season. Was starting to perform better. Judge wanted to bring in one of his guys, Dave DeGuglielmo, longtime offensive line coach, been with the Giants in the past, with the Jets, with the Dolphins, with the Patriots, which is where he knows Judge from. He wanted to bring him in as a consultant.
Colombo during the season.
Yeah, like starting this week.
Okay.
Bring him in as a consultant. Colombo saw that as having somebody look over his shoulder, not letting him do the job he was hired to do. They got in a blow up. Colombo said an inappropriate word to Judge, but I doubt that was really the reason for the firing, because if you've ever heard Judge talk, he had to get bleeped out on the radio the other day. He's not afraid to drop a curse word here or there. So I think it's more about, Colombo feeling like he didn't want somebody looking over his shoulder, and Judge feeling like, you put the team first. Whatever I tell you to do is what's in the interest of the team. If you don't want to do it, then you're not part of this team. So they butted heads. They had different philosophies. Colombo wants to play five guys. Judge wants to rotate guys on the offensive line. It wasn't a good partnership, and it came to a head.
All right, well, we'll see how that works for the Giants moving forward, because even though they have just 3 wins, they are still in the NFC East race after beating the Eagles. And, the way that they're playing, look, yes, the 3 wins, they've swept the Redskins and beat the Eagles. So we all know that. That's the story of the NFC East.
They beat each other. That's about it.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was looking at the games this week. It was funny. I was going over the Bengals-Redskin game and the Cleveland-Philly game. And I'm going over each game. I do what I normally do. I go over the trends and the injuries and everything else that, okay, here's, and I'm ready to, I'm going, I'm 99% done. And I all of a sudden something hit me. And I said, wait a second. This is the AFC North teams, which is probably the best division in football, playing NFC East teams, which is probably the worst, not even probably, the worst division in football. Why am I even thinking about taking any other teams than the 2 teams from the AFC North?
No, absolutely. Yeah.
So now that doesn't mean they're both going to win, but that's just, that's the way that should just be, I don't need to even look at anything else. That's it. I mean, until the NFC East starts proving they can win some of these games.
Correct. Unless you're talking about point spreads, then it gets complicated. But straight up, absolutely never.
And both of these games are pretty, the lines are small. Cleveland's 3 now, I think, with the news that Garrett's not playing. And Cincinnati's actually a 1-point dog, which I was surprised. I thought the Bengals would have been a favorite over the Redskins, but okay. So. Because the Redskins aren't out of it either. Because if the Redskins win, they'll be tied with the Giants.
You owe like $10 into the swear jar for not calling them Washington football team about 8 times so far, Greg.
That's okay. That's going to go on for a very long time with me, and I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Giants are on a bye, and the Cowboys are at the Vikings with Andy Dalton back. So, look, it's interesting if we're talking about the NFC East for a sec here, Greg. I did calculated their remaining strength of schedules, and the Cowboys have clearly the easiest path ahead of them. Does that mean they're going to win the division? I don't know. Like, they're 2-7, and the Eagles are 3-5-1. So they're whatever that is, a game and a half, two and a half back.
Yeah.
But they have clearly the easiest schedule. Their last 6 opponents are winning percentage combined of 3.75, which is pathetic. And they only have 1 game left against the team with a winning record, which is the Ravens. So they start this week with the Vikings. They're 8.5-point dogs. But if they win that game, the Cowboys with Dalton back at quarterback are very much alive.
Yeah, that's the trick, though, if they win that one.
Correct.
Because the Vikings are hot as well, and their next 3 opponents are all losing teams. So the Vikings could be 7-5 in the next 3 weeks, and all of a sudden they're right there. Because even though they're not 7-5 yet, they're still right there in the NFC. But they've got a couple of games to catch up on because of those 3 NFC West teams.
Yeah.
And we're pretty sure the 2 teams from the South are going to make it.
Exactly. So that's the thing is, it looks like the playoffs in the NFC are pretty set. Like there's 7 teams who are clearly ahead of everybody else. If the Vikings win 3 in a row, then sure, they'll join the party.
Yeah, they're in the mix. Yeah.
Yeah. But even if they go 2-1, I think you're looking at, who the 7 teams are. The 3 from the West, the 2 from the South.
I agree. Yes. They got to win all 3. Yeah.
Packers and the NFC East. Win. Yep.
Yeah, that's So, and then speaking of the West, last night big win again for Seattle. What a surprise! The offense looks good when they run the football. They had a huge game on the ground, 165. Carlos Hyde came back, which was just a big lift. They were running they did a great job of catching Arizona off guard, running in spots that I don't think they thought Seattle would run. 2nd and 7, things of that nature, which Seattle normally would throw. And that's, they did a good job of game planning, Arizona. And it was a sloppy game at times. Both teams, a lot of penalties. I mean, they had talked, all we hear about, no penalties. We're limiting penalties. That's the reason why there's such great scoring in the NFL this year. It has nothing to do with no fans. It's penalties. And then they keep calling all these penalties all day long. So there were a lot of penalties that both teams did not look good at, especially at certain big opportunities as far as touchdown drives and so forth.
That holding penalty in the end zone changed the game because
that was it. Yeah,
23-21, and then then you get a safety, so it's 25-21, and then they kick a field goal, it's 28-21, and Arizona, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they got inside the 30 there at the end of the game and threw 4 straight passes, none of them to DeAndre Hopkins, which is baffling. But they were already in field goal range without that safety that, they could play to win on a field goal. Now, all of a sudden, they go from down 2 to down 7 the next time they have the ball. And, that obviously changes how you play defense. And Seattle needs all the defensive help it can get.
Yeah, I think most people probably thought that when Seattle didn't score the touchdown and it was 28-21, that, all right, this is going overtime. And they're not going to stop Arizona. Come on, Arizona march down, score a touchdown. We're going to overtime. But look, don't let
Hopkins.
What's that?
Arizona stopped itself by not throwing DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, well, and they look, and it was, they definitely didn't have a crisp game, and that was expected. When you're at home for a month, and you have this dramatic win to end your month-long homestand. And then you have to go on the road in 3 days. Come on. I mean, you knew Arizona was going to come back down a little bit to earth in the game, and they did. And Seattle, boy, if they would have allowed Arizona to steal that win, that might have been it for Seattle. That could have been a killer.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a big one because I think there's still a lot of people that aren't believers in Arizona. They're a year off. I keep hearing from people I talk to, they're a year off. They're a year off. Well, if they won that game, it would have been very hard to say they're a year off. They would have been in the driver's seat in the division.
Yeah, Arizona's. I'd be very surprised if they don't make it to the playoffs. I think if I'm looking at one team, it'd be the Rams, to tell you the truth, because of, and it's not because of the defense. I've been saying this. I said it on the Jet Show. I said it earlier this week. You want to get a fresh face of somebody who would be a really good coaching hire. Just take a look at Brandon Staley, the young defensive coordinator for the Rams. That's the
Yep.
reason they got rid of Phillips. This kid's an up and comer. The defense has been fantastic. It's not because of Jared Goff they're winning. It's because of the Rams defense.
Yep. Agreed 100%. And it's
So
not
if
just
Goff stinks it up, which is entirely possible, especially if they don't beat the Bucks this week and they're 6-4, then Minnesota, if they win one game at 5-5, they're just a game back of the Rams and they got a shot.
the one thing is I agree with you. I've heard a lot about Staley the last couple of weeks, but let's not forget the Rams have good defensive players.
Oh, of
Aaron
course,
Donald,
yes.
Jalen Ramsey. I mean, that's a good defense. I know they lost Corey Littleton in the offseason. They brought in Leonard Floyd, I think. They have good defensive players, and that people always want to give the coach so much credit. Players still win games, and that's why I'm impressed with the Giants defense for a sec, because they don't really have good players. So they're getting a lot out of some very average or slightly above average players. Staley has Donald and Ramsey playing very well, which motivates them. That's part of the job.
Yeah, he's been able to also find this Darius Williams kid, the corner opposite Ramsey,
Yeah.
who might be playing better than Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
But of course, Jalen Ramsey is not going to get as much attention, so attention goes on the other side. But the Darius Williams kid is having a breakout campaign. But yeah, absolutely.
So important. So important to have that. When you have a legit number one cornerback, it's so important to have that number two cornerback.
And they probably right now, but I'd say it's between the Rams and the Dolphins, for the teams that have the best 1-2 punch at corner.
Yeah.
And those are two teams, speaking, of course, of the Dolphins, which we'll get into a little bit later on, right now also in the playoff, position. They're sixth in the AFC. Well, we're going to use this week to kind of take a look back at what we predicted earlier on in the season. And we're going to, I wanted to ask you about Deandre Baker, speaking of the Giants. So he was signed by the Chiefs?
Yep. Speaking of corners. Yep.
Yeah. So
the Deandre Baker situation, we've spent a lot of time on it on this podcast. Quick rundown was, he was a first-round pick of the Giants, 2019, struggled as a rookie, got arrested in May for armed robbery charges along with Seahawks safety Quinton Dunbar. Dunbar's charges were dropped in August. Baker was charged by the state's attorney's office. Well, those charges were just dropped now this week on Monday, and Baker is signed with the Chiefs, and now he has a Super Bowl contender. Why were the charges dropped? Well, according to the state's attorney's office, they arrested the lawyer for the three of the four men who were witnesses and victims of Baker's alleged robbery for extorting Deandre Baker, asking for $1.5 million to change their testimony, negotiated down to $800,000. Obviously, the police were involved in that. They were well tuned to what was going on in those negotiations, and the three men basically said, "We'll tell a different story. We'll recant our testimony. You didn't rob anybody if you pay us off." And so no money changed hands, but the law enforcement had enough evidence to say these guys are no longer credible. They changed their story with the wind. And so Deandre Baker's charges were dropped. What really happened, I don't think anybody knows. We don't know if there was a gun there. We don't know how it escalated. We don't know if there was a robbery. We don't know what. We know no one really is credible. And so Deandre Baker walks away a free man and gets a second chance.
And he better take advantage of it. So he got lucky. Because like you said, we don't know what happened. And he could have been in the right and still got screwed. or he could have been in the wrong and ended up in the clinker, and his NFL career was over. But he got a break. Hopefully, he'll take advantage of it, and now he can go out to parties with Le'Veon Bell and Hill, Bell, and Baker. They could all hang out together.
Yeah, he should probably not go to parties and study the playbook.
No, he shouldn't.
Based on what I heard about him as a rookie with the Giants, not too in tune to his playbook or meetings. So you hope this scared the daylights out of him, whether he was innocent, guilty, whatever, gets to restart, and you hope he, focuses on he being a good football player and making a life-changing amount of money for his family.
A big rumor that's been floating around this week. It happens every time this year, but this is for a different reason, and that is the Jim Harbaugh rumor. These rumors usually come up because Jim Harbaugh is the hot coaching candidate, and he's going to go in the NFL, et cetera, because he's just a hot, really good college coach. Now, it's because he's going to get fired, which, by the way, is never happening. So I don't care what anybody says. Jim Harbaugh is never getting fired. He's going to have to – that team would have to have back-to-back 3-win seasons before they even consider firing Jim Harbaugh. So it ain't happening. If he could leave, he could say, you know what, maybe I'm not the answer. I still don't think it's happening. But it is interesting that here we go again with the Harbaugh, and then it's tied to the Jets, and as a Michigan fan and a Jet fan, I mean, I'm just so sick of the rumors. I mean, I just honestly don't think Jim Harbaugh's going anywhere.
It's like Bill Cowher to the Giants or Bill Cowher to whoever. It's just like eventually you have to realize he ain't coming back. But I think John Gruden gave enough fire to this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When 10 years, is he going to come back? Is he going to come back? This team wants him. This team wants him. Oh, he's staying in the booth. And then he goes back to the Raiders of all places.
Yeah.
Gave enough juice to stories like this that they'll never go away. No, I'm on the other side from you. I think he will be done at Michigan. Whether it's a fire or a resignation or just a mutual agreement of, hey, we don't want to fire you, but we don't really want you anymore. So if somebody else wants you, you should probably take that job.
See, the thing is, this year, and I get it because he has 1 year left on his deal, but it's not over. He still has another year. The thing is that this year, I mean, you have to be an idiot running your university, running your NFL team to not, especially colleges, to not look at what's going on and go, okay, we kind of have to have a pass here for this year because this year is just a joke.
I don't know if that's true. Why doesn't Alabama need a pass? Why doesn't Ohio State need a pass? Why doesn't Clemson need a pass? That's who Michigan wants to be.
Well, that's what they want to be. Yeah, sure.
So why do they have to give them? I mean, Ohio State is going to steamroll them by 30 again, and they didn't. I mean, they're going through the same pandemic with the same canceled spring practice and limited training camp. The playing field's mostly even. I mean, and it's not just this year. The playing field's mostly even. Is it a total screwed up year, and is it a total circumstances are beyond unlike anything else? Yeah. Are there excuses built in? Yeah, but there are excuses built in for everybody. So to me, that's kind of a wash. I can't just give it. They decided to play. So, Michigan State dealt with the same thing. Michigan State lost to Rutgers and then just beat Michigan. Michigan State has the same restrictions that Michigan has, and they lost. I mean, to me, it's that simple.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at it as the things that couple things. First of all, if you're going to fire or want to move on from Jim Harbaugh, you 100% better know who you're hiring. You 100% better know that the guy that you're going to take over is a proven winner.
Correct.
Somebody that
different story. Totally agree.
If you don't have that guy, then look, being a Michigan fan, I went through the years before Jim Harbaugh got there.
Correct.
And those were bad years. And am I happy that they can't beat good teams? Of course not. I'm not happy about that. But here's the thing. He's done two things wrong. One, He should have fired Don Brown after last year. I don't know why he keeps going with this guy, Don Brown. He's the wrong defensive coordinator with this team. If he can't match up with Ohio State at the end of every year, what are you doing with the guy? Now he can't even match up with Wisconsin. So he should have fired Don Brown. Number two, and maybe more importantly, he hasn't found a quarterback.
Correct.
And until he finds a quarterback, that's the problem.
That's supposed to be his thing, right?
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. And now he finally, I think, is going to go to this McNamara kid to get rid of Milton, which Milton's got one extra game he shouldn't have gotten. The guy's not a quarterback. He's a guy that can throw the ball 100 yards. He has no accuracy. He should never see the field again. But he's got this McCaffrey 5-star kid coming next year.
Yeah.
That's the highest recruited quarterback he's ever had.
They're always going to have they're always going to have good recruits. So you can't always, to me, you can't base it on we can't fire him because we'll lose our top recruit or whatever. You're going to get
not about losing him. It's about if that is finally his quarterback.
Okay. So then what? Is the kid going to play as a true freshman, or are you going to redshirt him?
Well, no. You again, that's what it all depends. See, that's another thing. McNamara, if he finally lets this kid play, that's one thing. Number two, the other reason that I think that Harbaugh has done a bad job is because he constantly goes to veteran quarterbacks. And I see all these freshmen starting all over the country. Why doesn't he ever allow these young freshmen to play? He doesn't. He goes with the Shea Pattersons and these other old stiffs, the guy who went to the Detroit Lions. I don't even remember his name. Like he doesn't have faith in these every other team that major university plays freshmen. You can't play a freshman quarterback.
No, I mean,
so
I don't think it's work. I thought it was a perfect marriage I thought he'd be a 30-year Michigan coach. I really did, because his shtick plays better in college than it does in the NFL. But I think he'll probably be back in the NFL sooner rather than later. If not this year, then after next year for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing too is that we know one general manager would offer him the job, if not more. Yep. But really, after what has happened, I mean, some of the shine has to be off.
Sure, but he's going to do what he does, which is he's going to take a losing team and make them competitive and playoff caliber very quickly. If the goal is to win a Super Bowl, he might not be your guy, because he's going to wear his welcome out in probably 3 or 4 years. So is he going to be able to get you a Super Bowl in 3 to 4 years? Because if he is, then okay. If not, well, you're going to deal with 3 or 4 years of a lot of, BS and a lot of angry players and, a lot of headaches, basically, in 3 to 4 years to go from, I don't know, say you're the Falcons, to go from 3 wins to 11 wins and be back to where Dan Quinn had you before that and Mike Smith had you before that, be that 11-win, Final Four of the NFC kind of team, and then, blow the whole thing up again when Harbaugh wears out his welcome. If that's worth it, I think that's the guy to hire. If you're looking long term, I don't know that he's the guy to hire. I don't think he'll be a 10-year NFL coach. I think he could have been a long-term college coach, but for whatever reason, it hasn't worked out.
All right, I'm still going to say that he's going to stay at Michigan, but if he leaves, it's not a surprise.
No,
but
if he leaves, it isn't for the Jets.
What's that?
I said if he leaves, it isn't for the Jets job.
Okay. Well, I don't know how I feel about that either. All right, so it might be good. As far as, by the way, the other thing with college and the NFL is so Muschamp gets fired, and all of a sudden South Carolina players, some of the key guys, have decided that they're not going to play anymore. They're opting out. I wonder how it's going to be interesting in the draft to find out how each of these NFL teams are going to respond to the players who did decide to opt out. Because I think there are going to be some GMs and some scouts that are going to look at that as, I'm not sure that's the type of player I want on my team. I mean, he's given up. He doesn't really want to play. It's sort of like the players decide they don't want to go to the bowl game and other players decide they do. So I think that'll be interesting to see if any of that has any impact.
I think there, like anything else, there will be teams that hold that against them. But I talked to a scout I trust about this just the other day, and he said, certainly won't affect any of the top guys. Could it affect when you're picking between a 5th rounder who didn't play and a 5th rounder who did play? Sure.
Yeah.
but it ain't going to affect Rousseau from Miami or Parsons from Penn State or any of the top guys. It won't be held against them. They'll go just
that
where
makes
they're
sense.
going to go.
And the new rule, the minority rule for head coaching hires, that doesn't sound like it's going off or going to go off too well. I understand what they're trying to talk about. You don't want to be giving up 2 third-round draft picks to the Kansas City Chiefs to hire Eric Bieniemy. I just wonder how it's going to work. I mean, you probably will find a general manager that's not going to care if they think they've got the right guy. They'll give up 2 third-round draft picks. But I don't know. I mean, I just wonder if it's going to affect the opportunity for.
Wait, you have to give 2. Well, explain. Maybe I didn't understand it right. Well, you have to give 2 third-round picks to hire Bieniemy? No, it's the opposite.
What's the opposite? No, Kansas City would be getting 3rd-round pick compensation if you take Eric Bieniemy from the Chiefs. That's what's happening. You are giving the Chiefs. Now, I'm not saying that I don't know if the team is the one.
The rule is designed to encourage minority hiring.
No. Well, I don't know. That's what I heard.
No, I don't. I'll have
you can't be getting 2 third-round draft picks and the coach. That doesn't make it. I don't know. I have to check it out. But that's kind of like that. That's kind of where what I heard. But we could check it out.
Yeah, I gotta look into that.
Yeah, we'll look into that.
Yeah.
But that's what I heard. That's what I heard. That why would you again? But I'm not really gonna. We'll have to take a look at it.
You're surprising me here. I wasn't expecting this topic, and truthfully, I have not looked into it at all this week.
Well, go ahead and look at it. You can find it while I go up and get some other things going, just so we're on the right page. Okay, sure. So what we also want to do is take a look at again, like I said, our early season predictions and how they match up. I think we both did it. We're both doing a pretty good job in the AFC, which is not a surprise because even though the AFC has better teams, I think that's why it might be a little bit easier for us to predict the AFC compared to the NFC, which is kind of, it's a little bit more wide open, especially when we both had Dallas in the East, but that's, understandable without Dak Prescott. I still think Dallas wins the division if Dak Prescott stays healthy, by the way. I don't know about you. So, yeah. Let's see. We both had San Francisco, and trying to see if there's anything here. You had the extra team from the East, Philly, and I had the extra 3 teams from the West, but I did not have Arizona since I had San Francisco. Neither one of us went with Arizona. Let's see. As far as the AFC, with Tennessee and New England are the 2 teams on the outs as of right now that you have in your top 7. And I have Tennessee. Tennessee's the one team that's on my outs in the AFC because I didn't have New England in there. But New England's sitting there 2 games out of a playoff spot. They are 2 games behind 6 teams. They have beaten 3 of those 6 teams. They're 3-0 versus the 6 teams that they're chasing. And, of course, got another big game coming up with the team that they should beat this week, Houston. I don't know. I mean, even though I didn't predict New England to make the playoffs when the season began, they've got an opening now because they're the huge win over the Ravens and the fact that, I just don't know if Vegas and Cleveland, teams like that, or even Miami, we'll see, even though I like the way Miami's, the way that they're winning games, but you think New England's got a shot to get back into it?
Absolutely. I think New England is the Minnesota of the AFC. I think they're the team that, got off to the bad start, that, has a somewhat, manageable schedule here down the stretch. It looks like they're playing well at the right time. And the AFC teams at the bottom are much more vulnerable to me than the NFC teams. The Rams, the Cardinals, the Buccaneers, those teams are much more formidable to me than the Raiders and the Browns are. So I think, if the Patriots get it together to a 9-7, 10-6 standpoint, I think they're certainly going to jump one of those teams that isn't traditionally in the playoffs, that is off to a good start, that'll probably be in danger of wilting down the stretch like Cleveland.
Well, out of those teams, you got Miami, Baltimore, Tennessee, Las Vegas. Of course, the Colts are in the lead at 6-3. Baltimore is also in the playoff spot at 6-3. But out of those 6-3 teams, you would have three of them would have to be wild card teams: Miami, Baltimore, and Las Vegas. So out of and Cleveland would not be in it right now, or Tennessee. But out of all those teams, who do you like the
How many
most?
teams are there that are 6-3 in the AFC?
Six.
Wow.
Yeah.
Plus, so how many teams 6-3 or better would be what? 9?
There are a total of 8, 9. Correct.
9. Wow. I like Baltimore the best of those teams, honestly. I know you're not high on Lamar Jackson. I like them the best of those teams, both offense, defense, coaching. I think they have all the pieces. I'm surprised where they've struggled. Tennessee.
Well, that is a huge game this week. Baltimore, Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee has struggled much more than I expected.
Yeah.
They got off to that great start, and then it almost seemed like it's been all downhill for them since they missed that week with the COVID and all that stuff happened. Whatever.
I don't know what's going. I mean, the secondary seems like it's been a mess.
Yeah, it's atrocious.
And
Clowney's done nothing.
Who's that?
Clowney.
Clowney's done nothing. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and Tannehill can only do so much. He's not an elite quarterback, so he needs all the help he can get. Right now, the defense isn't helping. Yeah, I mean, this is it. I mean, both Baltimore and Tennessee are struggling right now. So, I tell you what, if Tennessee were to upset Baltimore again on Sunday, then I think Baltimore's in trouble.
Yep.
I mean, I would seriously think that they'd be in bigger trouble. Either team loses, they're in huge trouble because of the way that you'd have to catch up and pass all these teams.
Correct.
But both teams are struggling so bad that if whoever loses is going to continue that downward spiral, and it's going to make it harder and harder for them to come back.
Correct.
Even if it's Baltimore.
I think that's the game I'm most interested in watching this week for sure. You were right. I'm looking at my phone right now. In the process of my move, this totally slipped through the Giants' crazy bye week. This totally slipped through my radar. This proposal, and you're right. I don't know how. I'm not really sure how it helps the minority candidates that the team that they're leaving gets 2 third-round picks, one each in consecutive years.
I know. I mean, to tell you the truth, as soon as you posed that question back to me, it didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
I know.
I can't believe what I'm reading. I didn't know anything about it. Shame on me. I got busy with other things, and this totally slipped under my radar because it's not the same proposal they were talking about in July. It's different. It's tweaked, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I don't know. Does the team that's hiring them doesn't give up the 2 third-round picks? Though?
That's the only thing I didn't know, so I don't know if you would be able to find that out. But yeah, that I didn't know.
Looks like additional supplemental third-round picks.
Yeah, so that's why. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I didn't know. But yeah, because if you think about it, you're right. I mean, let's see. Why would? It's like
that doesn't make any sense.
You're not getting the compensation.
Yeah.
So why? That's why. That's why I was saying. Why would then anybody want to hire Eric Bieniemy if you're in the AFC? If you're trying to battle Kansas City, I got to give them, or they're going to get compensated for draft picks.
Well, that's different. Well, those are two different things. You don't have to give them compensation; they're getting compensation.
Well, true, but still, you're giving the team I'm chasing all this extra ammunition to beat me.
Well, I mean, what's a third-round pick really? I mean, you get third-round picks for losing free agents, and teams very rarely, although it's become more popular where they don't sign you. That's why Clowney and Logan Ryan and whatnot were free agents for so long because of the compensatory pick formula. But yeah, I don't anticipate that'll really be much of a drawback. Like, I'm not going to sign the coach I want who I think will win us Super Bowls.
Yeah, it shouldn't.
Kansas City's going to get another guy who could compete to be their starting, middle linebacker or whatever. I can't worry about that.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. If you like a guy, you like a guy.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, so yeah, I don't think Vegas is gonna hold on. They just don't have the defense. They're taking on the Chiefs. You know what, Vegas? If you want to prove that you're really better than everybody thinks, and look, I thought they were going to be a team that was going to battle all the way to the end as a playoff team this year without getting in. But to expect them to get in, beat the Chiefs then again, which nobody's expecting you to do.
Yeah.
So if you could do something nobody's expecting you to do,
Then you're legit. If you sweep the Chiefs,
yeah,
you're the story of the NFL for the next couple weeks.
yeah. So that I'm not expecting. Colts have the Packers, which is a nice test of both teams from, good teams from both conferences. Actually, the Packers are the 1 seed in the
Yep.
NFC. And the Colts look like they're starting to play better. What was it? Jason La Conforta, his article last week, I didn't understand at all that the Colts should bench Phillip Rivers because I guess after the Raven game, and Jacoby Brissett got a raw deal and it should be I don't know what he's talking about. I mean, Rivers has done he's had one blip in the last month, and that was against the Ravens. They're
We saw
peaking.
enough of Jacoby Brissett, and we've seen enough in the past that
Yeah.
he's a fine quarterback.
He's a good backup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he could even start for some bad teams, but he isn't getting you to the playoffs. He isn't winning playoff games.
No.
Look, you're trying. Maybe Rivers isn't either, but they committed to Rivers before the year as this was a 1 year, make a run kind of year, and you're 6-3. So I don't know why you'd change anything.
Yeah, and he's actually, if you look at it, Rivers right now over the last four games, if you take out the game that he had against Baltimore, he's had, I think, 300-yard games. In the other 3, he's had 941 yards total passing in 3 of those wins, 7 touchdowns, 1 pick. So he's had 1 bad game. He's had 3 very good games, but this is the big one too. And we talked about Nyheim Hines last week. Wasn't that timely?
Yeah.
They finally get Nyheim Hines the ball. He carried the ball 12 times. He looked like the guy that we thought he would be if they started to give him more touches in the backfield.
Absolutely. He's I think I've compared him in the past to like that Darren Sproles kind of guy. He was a high impact, low touch guy. He doesn't need 20 touches.
No.
He doesn't need 15 touches. He doesn't even really need 12 touches to make an impact in a game. He can make a big impact on 5 touches.
But it's one of those things where you have to definitely make sure you hand the ball off to him enough. It can't be just 2 handoffs and 10 passes.
Yeah.
Got to get him at least 8 to 12 carries a game.
Yeah.
Especially with that team. Taylor is just
very
fumbling the ball too much again, and he's still a rookie.
Yep.
And Wilkins is just a regular average running back. But
Right.
anyway, big game with the Packers. I like the Colts this week. I mean, they need the game more than the Packers do. They got a better defense than the Packers have. I think that's the difference, the Colts defense.
I'll take the Packers. I think the Packers are one of those teams that even with no fans understands that home field for them in the playoffs is an enormous advantage, fans or no fans. So I think they'll be the team with Rodgers leading the way, obviously, to gain a little separation here. 7-2 for them, 7-3 for the Seahawks, 7-2 for the Saints. Saints playing without Breeze. The Packers sense an opportunity here, I think, to have the road to the Super Bowl go through Lambeau.
The Saints without Breeze for a couple of weeks. So there's this big headline about Taysom Hill starting. And it's like, okay, so what are you trying to tell me that just because he starts that Jameis Winston ain't playing? I'm not going to buy that, but I think it's the right call. I was watching Winston last week, and he just didn't look good. So I'm willing to give him a week of practice as the number 1, which I'm sure he didn't get. He got split number 1s, who knows? But he didn't look good. And
it's a very strange situation, Greg, because I think I'm with you. They're going to play both guys, but they're not playing the same offense. What you do with Taysom Hill in the game is going to be very different than what you do with Jameis Winston in the game. So are you going to ask your coaches and all 50, your right tackles and your fullbacks to learn essentially 2 different game plans and alternate them? It's very strange to do. Usually when you see this, in the college level or something, it's similar quarterbacks. Like this is maybe a freshman and a senior who play similarly, but one guy's experienced, the other guy's not. You're basically going to have to run two different offenses if you play both. Not a good look for Jameis, though, that he's not the guy without Drew Brees. He went there to kind of study the Drew Brees Peyton relationship and have a leg up on being that team's quarterback if Brees retires at season's end, and this will knock him down a peg further.
Well, we'll see. I mean, maybe we'll be shocked and Taysom Hill will play the whole game, and they will wind up running more plays designed for Taysom Hill. Look, I was a Taysom Hill fan when he came out of BYU. It was the only knock, the big knock, were the big injuries. The knee injuries. It was sad to see him get hurt as often as he did, but he was just one of these. You could tell when he played at BYU, he was one of these winners. He's a guy that he was out there. He did everything, and with his feet, with his arm. He was a really interesting player. I just never thought that he'd stay healthy in the NFL when he couldn't stay healthy in college. So It's great to see that he's going to get this. Maybe he'll get an audition here for a couple of games because this is his opportunity if Brees decides to retire at the end of the year, if the Saints believe that Taysom Hill could be their quarterback next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, they didn't give him 2 years and $21 million to not be their quarterback. I've been saying that since they signed him. Everybody kind of mocked them as like, oh, that was a ridiculous contract. Well, Sean Payton, as long as he's the coach, has an infatuation with Taysom Hill.
Yep.
The next coach might not want Taysom Hill, but Sean Payton's going to give Taysom Hill a chance. You don't take Drew Brees out and put Taysom Hill in the game as frequently as they do if you don't think the guy can play quarterback. And now Brees isn't here, and we're going to see what Hill can do on a semi-full-time basis.
Yep, and let's hope he can stay healthy. Look, it'd be a tough matchup, though. Falcons are actually my upset pick of the week. I picked them when I thought Winston was going to start, I'll be honest. But I still think they're a good upset pick because of the way they're playing and the fact that the Saints with the quarterback situation. I just don't know what we're going to get with the Saints offense. So Saints, though, are playing 5 of the last 6 games against losing teams. And they're currently – where are they currently in the standings? They are the number 2 seed. So they have a great chance to still end up with a number 1 seed based on the remaining schedule they have.
I am still alive in my survivor pool, believe it or not, and have the Saints left and was going to pick them either this week or next week, and the quarterback uncertainty means I will not be picking the Saints either week.
Okay. That's not a bad idea, especially with Atlanta.
And then Denver next week. I still, with Taysom and Jameis and no Drew Brees, I'm just not comfortable. I don't know what that team is without Drew Brees. He's been the quarterback there for so long.
Yeah.
I don't know what that team – I know Kamara's great, and I know Thomas, and I know the defense plays better. I don't know what the Saints are without Drew Brees, so I can't pick them.
Meanwhile, speaking of Denver, maybe if Drew Lock has a bad game maybe he won't be around, and you could pick the Saints next week against a Drew Lock-less Denver Broncos. But
I don't know. Who was the guy who beat the Jets for the –
that was it Finley?
No, it wasn't Finley.
No, Rippin.
Yeah, Brett Rippin. I don't know. I'm not picking against Brett 1-0 Brett Rippin.
So the Dolphins, though, are doing everything on defense and special teams to win football games. They have won 5 straight games by a 14-point margin. That is hard to do in the NFL. So most of their games, with the exception of the Arizona game, most of their games they have won. Okay, we got a pretty decent lead in the fourth quarter. We didn't have to sweat it out. This is a tricky one, no question. I get it, but I mean, Miami, the direction that they're going, why wouldn't you like Miami in this spot against Denver?
Brian Flores is NFL Coach of the Year right now, today.
I agree. He is. This is, by the way, first time the Dolphins are a road favorite under Brian Flores.
Probably won't much longer than that. I mean,
well, this is it. We'll see how he handles being a road favorite for the first time. I'm sure he'll handle it well. By the way, the Saints were your pick, Super Bowl pick, before the season began.
Mm-hmm.
You had them over the Chiefs, and you had Baltimore and Seattle as your championship game losers.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel about all that?
I mean, three of those teams are like right there,
You still
right?
feel good about three of those teams.
Yeah, I mean the Saint. If I'm looking at the odds right now, the Saints and the Chiefs have the third and first best odds to win the Super Bowl. So I feel pretty good about that pick. Feel good about the Seahawks, especially after last night. I think they're the second best team. I think it's Saints and Seahawks. I think the Packers will probably win the NFC, be the one seed, but I don't know that they're the best team. Uh,
So you
and
still like the Saints right now as the best team in the NFC?
You got to tell me. I can't say that. You got to tell me what Drew Brees playing again. I don't like him if Drew Brees isn't
Oh, of
playing.
course not. Yeah. So
If Drew Brees is back,
who's
then
number
yeah,
two?
the Seahawks.
Seahawks. Okay, so you're still good with Seattle number two.
My top three would be Saints with an asterisk based on Brees, and then Seahawks Packers. And then if no Brees, I'll take the Saints out. I'd go Seahawks, Packers, and probably the Rams. I would say. Yeah, I think they would probably be my third team. In the AFC, I would say the Chiefs are my one. The Steelers, I guess, are my two, though I don't love them. And I would say probably my third team in the AFC is between, if I'm sticking with what I said before the season, it's Baltimore. But everything I've seen, I would say probably I would put Buffalo a notch ahead of Baltimore right now.
Yeah, my 1 through 4 in the AFC is my top four that I've done well with: Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, and Buffalo. So those four, because I still like the Colts. I just think as long as Phillip Rivers continues to play better, as he's get more acclimated with this team, we know how much better Pittsburgh is than most people thought at the beginning of the season. And Buffalo is more than likely still going to win the AFC East.
Yes.
Do you think the Dolphins get to the playoffs?
Yes, I do. Yep, I do. I think they're. You asked me earlier which teams I think are the best. Baltimore, I think, is the best of that bunch, and then I think Miami is probably the second best.
And by the way, Seattle is still, as of before the Thursday night game, they were 16-1 to win this, which isn't bad at this point in the season.
For a team that's pretty good.
Yeah, even Green Bay at 9-1, or even if you like the Saints or the Bucks at 7-1. But Tampa Bay, I just don't know. Like, I'm staying away from the game on Monday night because I just don't know what I'm getting out of Tampa Bay every week.
I don't know what I'm getting out of either team, Tampa or the Rams. That's a tiebreaker game. That's what that is.
You know what I'm afraid of with Tampa Bay, if you're a Tampa Bay fan, is they have problems when they have to go up against good defensive teams, which the Rams are.
Yep.
I'm not sure that's a good matchup for the Bucks.
No, I think they make a good point.
Yeah, so that's the thing and do you think Minnesota does win 3 straight?
No. I don't think teams that are not good teams can reel off 6-game winning streaks. No, I don't.
Dallas beats them?
Who's after Dallas?
I think one of the teams is Carolina. And let's see who the other team is.
Right now. Dallas, Carolina, Jacksonville. Yeah, I would say
Jacksonville, okay.
My guess would be Carolina.
Probably Carolina, yeah, as long as Bridgewater plays, because we don't even know if Bridgewater's playing on Sunday.
No, I would say Carolina wins. Yeah.
And because let's see, okay. And are the Jets going to win?
Now you're putting me on the spot. That's my survivor pick. No, I picked I hate that game. I got to tell you, I hate that game. Look, the Chargers find new ways to lose every week. I mean, they play well and they lose every week. That's just what the Chargers do every week. It's just they rip your heart out. So you're telling me it's almost one of those games where you throw out the actual football and you just do it based on your bleeding heart or whatever. Like, who wins? The team that never wins or the team that always finds a way to lose? You can just see where the Chargers are up 10 with 2.5 minutes to go, and then the Jets score, and then the Chargers fumble, and then the Jets score again. Like, you could just see, like, if the Jets are going to win a game, it's going to be against a team that beats themselves, and the Chargers love to beat themselves.
Yeah, this would be a good week for it because the Jets are going to play Miami next week. And here's an interesting, crazy trend to end the show. Winless teams following a bye after week 5 are 17-4 against the spread.
That's interesting. And you had that crazy Jet stat while we were talking about the Jets, right? Didn't you have a crazy Jet stat about the teams that after?
Oh, yes. The team. Well, this will be next week. The Chargers are playing the Bills, and so this is important because every team that has beaten the Jets this year has won the next game.
Interesting.
9-0. This means the Chargers have got to beat the Bills. So that could be one of those games where next week I'm just going to go, I'm taking the Chargers in the money line, man. Why not? They're 9-0. That's a perfect record at that point. I mean, it wouldn't be the strangest thing in the world to see the Chargers actually win a game because they're not as bad as their record, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And Bosa comes back to play for the Chargers, by the way.
Yeah, and the Jets are playing guys off the street at cornerback, which does not bode. Which
they're playing their rookies. They're playing Bryce Hall now.
Yeah, if you're facing Justin Herbert in fantasy football, that does not bode well for you.
So. And Sam Darnold has decided again to pass on playing. So
I mean, I don't know that I would call it a pass on playing. He's hurt. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I just kind of find it interesting when Gase says in this press conference, "Hey, it looked good. He looked good to us, but he was smart and told us that he didn't feel right." Yeah. All Sam Darnold had to do was say, "I feel good."
Yeah.
He could have played.
Drew Brees did that to Sean Payton, and no one's knocking Drew Brees for that, right? So he ended up with fractured ribs down.
No, I'm just saying, of course,
I'll never knock a guy for being injured until there's proof that he's not really injured.
No, I'm not saying he's not injured. We all know he's injured.
Jets have done no favors to Sam Darnold the way they ran him out there with an injured Becton and all. They've done him no favors. He don't owe them nothing. So.
Well, I agree with that. And I'm sure that's part of his decision. I think if they're a winning team, I don't know. I think he's playing. But I think at this point he's, I'm taking care of myself, which I agree with. Because how many times when a player on your favorite team gets hurt for the year, and then you find out that the kid wasn't honest with the coach, and as a fan, you are mad at the player.
Yeah,
because just tell the kid, the coach that you're not ready for a week or two, and at least you're with our team for the rest of the year. So I completely understand why, because I do agree with it. It's the best way of taking care of yourself. All right. Anyway, Ryan, appreciate it. We'll talk early next week. We'll wrap up week 11, and then it's Thanksgiving week in the NFL. There'll be 3 games on Thanksgiving Day to talk about.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.